Hello there, and welcome back to the Science Sleepy Minds. The stars around you don't twinkle out here. They burn steady and distant, cold little pinpricks in a velvet black sky that stretches in every direction. No up, no down. Just the hum of your suit's oxygen whispering in your ears, the occasional soft tick of your heart reminding you that somehow you're still very much alive. You're adrift near the most terrifying object in the known universe, and it is so quiet. Below you, although let's be real, directions are getting slippery out here, looms a black hole. Not the cartoonish kind with a swirling funnel and a sci-fi tractor beam, but a real one. Perfectly spherical, darker than darkness, with a gravity so strong not even light can break free once it steps too close. It doesn't roar or growl or flash, it just waits, patiently, eternally. You float toward it now. You're far enough away that everything still seems normal. Your clock ticks forward. You breathe in, breathe out. You've got a little time, just a little. But soon, you'll approach something called the event horizon, a name that sounds like it belongs in a Christopher Nolan script but is unfortunately all too real. Once you cross it, there's no calling for help, no flying back, no explaining what you saw. You'll become an event yourself. One that only goes one way. You probably won't survive this. But you knew that when you signed up. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me where you're watching from. Drop your city and local time in the comments. I want to know which corner of Earth you're drifting from before we leave it behind. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The edge of the black hole isn't a wall or a line or a sudden drop. It's more like a gradient. You feel nothing at first, no gut-wrenching pull or sudden vertigo. The black hole has a mass several times that of our sun, but it's concentrated in such a small volume that its gravity is like a silent snare. You're still outside the danger zone for now, orbiting like a comet that got just a little too curious. The light around you starts doing strange things. Distant stars appear to shift. Behind you, the universe stretches out as usual, but ahead of you, toward the black hole, space itself bends. You're not hallucinating. You're watching the gravitational lensing effect, where space-time curves so intensely that it actually distorts the path of light. It's like looking at the universe through a warped magnifying glass. Historically, it was Albert Einstein's theory of general relativity in 1915 that first predicted the existence of such monstrous gravitational pits. Though he himself wasn't thrilled about the idea, others ran with it. Schwarzschild calculated a solution that described a non-rotating, uncharged black hole, still known today as the Schwarzschild black hole. That's probably what you're falling toward right now. Simple, elegant, deadly. Your ship, well, let's just call it a capsule, has no thrusters anymore. That was your decision, remember? This is a one-way trip. You've committed to the fall. From this point on, gravity takes the reins, and you're just along for the ride. An object falling freely toward a black hole experiences no force of gravity in the traditional sense. It feels weightless, like an astronaut in orbit. That's what you feel now. Perfect, deceptive calm. Fringe physicists in the mid-20th century like John Archibald Wheeler, who actually coined the term black hole, were fascinated by these bizarre objects. But for decades, they were considered more mathematical curiosities than physical realities. It wasn't until the 1970s and later, with better telescopes and radiation detection, that we realized, oh no, these things are real. Very real. You peer ahead. The black hole doesn't have a visible surface. It's just a dark void surrounded by the glowing swirl of an accretion disk, superheated gas and matter spiraling in at nearly the speed of light. It shines in X-rays, which you can't see with your own eyes, but your instruments tell you it's blazing hot. You're falling on a less chaotic trajectory, aimed for a quieter part of the horizon. Historians still argue whether early Indian and Arabic scholars had primitive black hole concepts in their cosmology. Ideas of infinite density, collapsing stars, or dark stars can be traced back to the 18th century. But whether they truly grasp the gravity of what they were suggesting is, well, up for debate. You drift closer. The stars behind you begin to smear into arcs. Not because you're moving so fast, though you are, but because space-time itself is shifting around you. The black hole is warping the very coordinates of existence. Time slows down here, not for you, but for anyone watching from afar. From their perspective, your approach seems to take forever. You freeze at the brink, but you're moving forward, right to the edge. Here it comes, the event horizon. You can't see it. It doesn't flash or buzz. You don't cross a glowing threshold with warning sirens. You simply drift past an invisible line where the escape velocity, how fast you'd need to move to get out, exceeds the speed of light. And nothing moves faster than light. That's the grim poetry of it. If photons can't escape, neither can you. Not now, not ever. People often imagine falling into a black hole as some kind of cosmic death sentence. And sure, that's mostly true. But it's not as dramatic from your perspective. No sudden crushing, no giant vacuum cleaner suck. You just continue falling. And once you're inside, the direction, called forward, is now toward the center. Space has curled in on itself, and the singularity, whatever it truly is, has become your final destination. Congratulations, you've crossed the horizon, your clock is still ticking, your fingers still twitch, you still breathe, but you're no longer part of the universe out there. Your past can be seen, but your future is sealed inside this warped little pocket of reality. And even if someone were watching you fall in from a safe distance, they'd never see this moment. To them, you freeze at the edge forever, red shifting into invisibility, like a ghost trapped at the border. So, welcome to the other side. The moment you cross the event horizon, you expect something, anything, to happen. A jolt, a flicker, maybe a sense of falling faster. But no, just the same gentle, directionless drift that's been with you for hours now. Only now, there's a subtle change you can't quite name. Like you walked through a doorway without a frame, you're past the point of no return. Let's be clear, this isn't poetic exaggeration. You're inside a region of space where the escape velocity exceeds the speed of light. And since nothing in the universe, no photon, no radio wave, no scream, can move faster than light, nothing from you will ever reach the outside world again. You could play a kazoo concerto, launch a flare, post a blog, even scream into a walkie-talkie, and no one out there would hear a thing. Your information is sealed in. From their perspective, you're frozen in time. They see you forever suspended on the edge, red shifting into darkness, your last signal caught in an endless delay. But from your point of view, you're still very much in motion. Time, for you, flows normally, or so it seems. This isn't just a space prison, it's a time prison. And here's where things get wild. Inside the event horizon, the roles of space and time switch places. Yeah, that's not a metaphor. What used to be going forward in time is now equivalent to moving inward through space. So when you think you're floating toward the singularity, what's really happening is that the singularity is in your future. Like the way Tuesday is in your future. You can't avoid Tuesday. You also can't avoid the singularity. The entire future of your existence is now a one-way trip inward. This bizarre flip was first described using Schwarzschild coordinates, which break down at the horizon. Literally, the math goes wonky. Physicists had to invent other coordinate systems like Kruskal-Sierra or Eddington-Finkelstein, just to describe what happens beyond that invisible line. That's how weird this region is. Even math has a minor panic attack. Now, what about the black hole's gravity? You expect to feel something, weight, pressure, pain, but still nothing. If this black hole is supermassive, like the ones in the centers of galaxies, it's tidal forces. At the event horizon are gentle. Your body doesn't stretch. Your organs don't liquefy. Yet. Not that you're comforted. The eerie calm only makes it worse. Fringe fact incoming. There was once a serious physics paper suggesting that black holes might be holographic computers processing information at their surface. The paper proposed that the event horizon might be more than a boundary. It might be a thinking, calculating skin. Is it true? Almost certainly not. But hey, who are we to say what's impossible when space becomes time and time becomes fate? You try to send a message, just one. Your fingers tap commands into a panel that no longer has a purpose. You hit transmit. The signal leaves your capsule and never gets out. You already knew this, but watching it fail in real time, that's a special kind of dread. You imagine what the signal might look like to someone watching from a safe distance. First it slows down, then it redshifts, the wavelength stretching longer and longer until it fades into undetectable nothingness. The data isn't lost, it's just stuck at the edge forever. A ghost frequency, like your last breath, holding its shape, endlessly delayed. Historians still argue whether any culture had a myth that even remotely captures the horror of black holes. The Norse Ginnunga Gap, a yawning cosmic void, gets tossed around in these conversations, but even that can't match the clinical, merciless silence of what you're experiencing now. Black holes aren't angry gods or vengeful beasts, they're just inevitable. And here's a chewy little paradox to chew on as you drift inward. You can still see the universe outside the black hole. Kinda. From your vantage point, all that light is still falling in behind you, but it's getting weird. Objects look distorted. Starfields are smearing into chaotic patterns. Time out there is accelerating while yours ticks normally. You're watching the universe play on fast forward, like someone hit the gas on all of reality. This is called gravitational time dilation. The deeper you fall, the faster the rest of the universe seems to move. Eventually, if you were to somehow survive long enough and had a good enough telescope, you could see stars being born and dying in mere moments. Entire civilizations rising and falling like blips on a screen. But you won't last that long, and your telescope's already giving up. Speaking of that, your instruments are starting to misbehave. Clocks disagree. Gyroscopes spin aimlessly. Compass needles, if you had any, would throw tantrums, because inside the event horizon, the concept of direction is fundamentally broken. Down is now toward the singularity, and no path leads anywhere else. And yet, part of you still hopes. Maybe this is just a phase. Maybe you'll find a pocket of stability. Maybe someone out there is waiting on the other side. You're not alone. In this hope, some theories suggest that inside a black hole might be a bridge to another region of space-time, a wormhole, an Einstein-Rosen bridge. But those are notoriously unstable and would require something exotic called negative energy to keep open, and you didn't pack any of that. The famous Penrose diagrams used to chart black hole behaviour show your future as ending in the singularity. That's not drama, that's math. And Penrose got a Nobel Prize for it, so it's not like you can argue. But then again, even the best equations break down at the singularity itself. So for now, you wait, you fall. You're no longer part of the universe, not really. You're in a different chapter of reality's book, a footnote no one can read. Your past remains visible to outsiders, but your future is yours alone, coiling inward like a clock made of mirrors. And the black hole, it doesn't care. It doesn't change. It doesn't even notice you're here. But now you know what the no escape really means. Not just in distance, but in time. Not just in motion, but in destiny. And still, you drift deeper. It takes a while before you realize the rules have changed. Not just the obvious ones, like you can't turn back or escape velocity now outpaces light. No, we're talking about the big rules. The ones you assumed were sewn into the fabric of reality. Like which way is forward, or how time works, or what even counts as movement when you're not sure if you're still inside space-time, or beneath it. You try to orient yourself. That used to mean aligning with a star, a planet, a compass point. Now, you might as well ask a dream which way is north. There's only one direction that matters anymore, inward. And remember, inside a black hole, inward isn't a direction in space. It's a point in time. And it's your future, unavoidable, unstoppable, as certain as Tuesday. To fall past the horizon is to enter a region where time itself has flipped its loyalties. The coordinate that once marked space now marks time, and vice versa. That means falling toward the singularity is as mandatory as aging toward tomorrow. You can't not do it. You can't even stop to breathe. Well, technically you're still breathing, but time, for you, is doing its own dance now. Your seconds feel normal, but they're not synced with anything anymore. If the rest of the universe were still watching, they'd see you frozen at the edge, your final moment stretched to infinity. But from here, infinity looks suspiciously like a long hallway with no exits. Physicists describe this with beautiful, cruel precision. They'll say things like, the singularity lies in the future of every causal trajectory within the event horizon, which is a fancy way of saying every path you could possibly take leads to the same place. There is no wiggle room, no back door, no wormhole shortcut, at least not in this flavor of black hole. This might be a good time to recall that even Einstein got uncomfortable with this stuff. Though general relativity predicted black holes, Einstein himself wasn't fully sold on the idea that nature would allow them to exist. He thought something, anything, would stop that final collapse. Spoiler, nothing did. The math held, the universe obeyed, and here you are. You're not spinning, not accelerating, not burning up. You're just falling, inevitably. But here's where things start to get dreamlike. Your surroundings, which were already strange, start to turn abstract. The star field above you twists into impossible shapes. The accretion disk behind you fades, redshifts, vanishes. Your sensors report conflicting data. Distances collapse. Time distorts. One monitor says you've been inside the horizon for 5 minutes. Another says 10 years. You're Schrödinger's stopwatch. Historians still argue whether the ancient Maya, whose astronomical knowledge was incredibly precise, had conceptual frameworks that even hinted at gravitational anomalies or the warping of time. There's no real evidence for that, but the speculation lives on in the more excitable corners of pop anthropology. You might laugh at that, if laughing didn't feel so absurdly out of place here. And now comes the philosophical hangover. If you're cut off from the outside universe, and the outside universe is cut off from you, are you still real? This isn't just stoner bait. Quantum physics, which really doesn't play nicely with general relativity, gets twitchy about what happens to your information. Are you preserved? Duplicated? Obliterated? More on that later. But for now, you're a kind of Schrödinger's astronaut, alive in your frame of reference, but inaccessible to any observer. And don't even try asking what frame of reference means here. The geometry of space-time inside the horizon is so warped that even basic concepts, like simultaneity, break down. Is now really now? Or is it just a slice of future collapsed inward? Imagine a mountain with a peak at the centre, but you can't climb it. You can only slide down its infinite slopes, every path winding toward the same unreachable summit, the singularity. That's you. That's your trajectory. Now, here's a delightfully fringe fact for your floating mind. Some speculative theories propose that inside the black hole, causality itself may become nonlinear. That is, the usual sequence of cause-arrow effect could collapse or reverse. Events might not unfold in a straight line. You could experience time as a circle, or a loop, or a fractal bloom. You reach out to touch the panel beside you. It's still there. Cold metal. Still responds. But the gesture feels slow, like your limbs are moving through molasses made of math. Your brain struggles to keep pace. You're not dying, at least not in the conventional sense. You're just moving deeper into a place where death may not even apply. In fact, inside the horizon, the very notion of location loses meaning. Space isn't made of up, down, or left, right anymore. It's defined by when you are, not where. You're always heading toward the same final moment, and nothing you do can change that. You think about the singularity. You don't want to, but you do. It's the end point, a place where density becomes infinite, where the curvature of space-time becomes so extreme that the known laws of physics break down entirely. Even general relativity, the theory that got us this far, throws up its hands and backs slowly out of the room. But here's the kicker. You can never actually see the singularity. Not like a mountain or a wall. It's always ahead of you in time. It's not a spot in space. It's your future. You never crash into it. You just arrive. And yet, you don't feel fear anymore. You're too deep for that now. Too far gone for panic. There's a strange peace in this fall. No more choices. No more decisions. Just pure inevitability. Like the universe has tucked you into the folds of its robe and said, "Shh, this part's just for you." And so you float on. Not aimlessly, but on the most specific, most unalterable path you've ever taken. Forward, inward, downward, into the time that is space, into the rules that no longer rule. There's no elegant way to say this, so let's just get it out of the way. Your body is starting to stretch. It's not sudden. There's no snap, no cartoonish pull like a taffy machine gone rogue. Just a slow, creeping tension. Arms pulling forward, legs trailing behind. At first it feels like you're stretching in your seat, maybe adjusting. But then you realize it's not you doing anything. Space itself is dragging your atoms apart. Welcome to Spaghettification. Or, if you prefer the technical term, vertical tidal stretching. It's not even your fault. Gravity's just being gravity. Only in here, it's off the leash. See, black holes aren't content to simply pull on you. Their gravity changes over distance. A lot. That's what we call a tidal gradient. Your feet, let's say they're pointed toward the singularity, are now closer to that ultra-dense core than your head. That means they're being pulled just a little bit harder, just enough to stretch you. Over time, that difference becomes dramatic. You're not falling. Parts of you are falling faster than others. The result? You're turning into human linguine. If you were falling into a stellar mass black hole, say, the size of a small city, this would have happened immediately at the event horizon. One moment you're whole, the next you're a sad noodle. But this black hole, it's supermassive. Millions, maybe billions of solar masses. The tidal forces are gentle at first. You've been lulled into false security, but now you've fallen far enough that things are starting to tug. You try to move, and your arms feel like they belong to someone 2 meters ahead of you. Your legs feel like they've signed a separate lease agreement. Everything is stretching along the vertical axis. Again, vertical being a kind of hopeful guess, because directions are still more philosophical than physical in here. This isn't how you thought you'd go, but really, who gets the exit they imagined? You might be wondering, wouldn't this kill you instantly? The answer is, maybe. The human body isn't designed for extreme tidal forces, obviously, but the exact moment of failure depends on how rapidly the stretching increases. Your nerves aren't screaming yet, which is either a miracle of biology, or your pain receptors have already gone offline. Let's take a little detour into history while your torso elongates like a piece of chewing gum. The term spaghettification was first popularised by physicist Sir Martin Rees. Yes, he of the British accent and devastatingly dry delivery. He coined it not as a joke, but as a poetic way to describe an utterly horrifying phenomenon. It stuck. Because science can be adorable, even when it's describing your last moments in this universe. But here's something quirkier. In the 1980s, there were genuine fringe papers discussing whether spaghettification might be survivable if somehow you could control the gradient, maybe by entering in a specific orientation, wearing specialised gear, or using speculative counterforces. Basically, could we engineer our way through a black hole's insides? The answer is still no. But hey, points for optimism. You reach for the console again. Not because you expect a change, more like a reflex. It's part of what makes you human. Even when doom is inevitable, you keep checking the dashboard, as if one of those blinking lights might suddenly say, recalculating route. Please turn around. Spoiler, it won't. As you stretch, you also start to flatten, at least in the transverse direction. That means you're becoming thinner as well as longer. Picture a spaghetti strand drawn slowly through a black comb, elongating and narrowing until it becomes a thread, then a whisper, then something smaller. You can't tell where your body ends and the black hole begins. You're merging with the geometry, becoming a coordinate more than a creature. Historians still argue whether early descriptions of the underworld, like the Greek Tartarus or Hindu Patala, had any metaphorical link to what we now know as spaghettification. Probably not. But it's comforting to imagine ancient poets glimpsing the physics of cosmic death in their metaphors. Long, narrow passages, endless falls, being stretched beyond recognition. Maybe they were onto something. You think about your atoms. Are they still yours? Are you still a person if you're longer than a basketball court and thinner than a hair? And yet, consciousness hasn't left you. It's distorted, sure, but still here, still humming. What a twisted place where your mind outlasts your form. Fringe fact, in 2006, a Russian team ran simulations suggesting that under very specific conditions, spaghettification might produce detectable gravitational wave patterns. That is, your death scream could become a ripple in space-time itself, a cosmic gong, a subatomic echo. What an odd way to leave a mark. Your body is now past recognition. You're more like a line segment with opinions. And yet, the laws of physics haven't fully abandoned you. Energy is still conserved. Mass still curves space-time. Your molecules, no matter how stretched, are still obeying the rules, even as those rules twist into paradoxes. Every second, you're further from anything familiar, and yet paradoxically, closer to the truth of what lies at the heart of all black holes, the singularity. It's not a place you can see or touch. It's not even a place in the normal sense. It's a boundary in the math, a line across which equations can't continue. When people say physics breaks down, they mean it literally. The calculations just stop working. Divide by zero, carry the panic. And you're heading there at the speed of fate. What happens when you get there? That's the trillion-dollar question, one that no one, scientist, philosopher, or particularly confused YouTuber can answer. You might be erased, compressed into a mathematical point. You might be shredded into pure energy. Or maybe, just maybe, you'll pass through. Bounce, re-emerge. But those are theories, and theories don't help you now. Not while your fingernails are 10 meters ahead of your knuckles. All you know is this: you're falling, you're stretching, and no one has ever returned to say what happens next. But hey, at least you're having a longer day than most. By now your odds of rescue have plummeted into the same void you're hurtling through. Not that you were ever counting on a last-minute save, but there's something about watching your connection to the universe go utterly, permanently dark that hits different. You reach out, more out of habit than hope. You ping the comms, nothing. You try a simple telemetry ping, no return. The silence isn't passive anymore, it's aggressive. Space isn't ignoring you, it's actively erasing you. This is what physicists mean when they say, information cannot escape a black hole. It's not just your atoms, it's your entire timeline, your signals, your light, your data, all gone. And here's the kicker, they're not just missing, they're impossible to retrieve. Any message you sent past the event horizon, even one bit, would have to outrun light. That's not just unlikely, it's forbidden. Now remember how outside observers see you. Frozen, hovering right at the edge. Your last message stretching into a redshifted whisper, taking longer and longer to arrive until it becomes radio silence. In their view, you never cross the horizon. You just fade, infinitely. But you? Oh, you've moved on. Crossed the horizon ages ago. The idea of time sinking between you and anyone else? That's long gone. Their clocks have abandoned yours like a group chat that got too weird. Let's throw in a little history here to spice up the darkness. In the mid-20th century, an American physicist named David Finkelstein first described the event horizon as a one-way membrane. Not a surface, not a place, just a point in the math where all paths lead inward. In 1958, he published a paper explaining what would later become obvious, that the event horizon is not a barrier you can detect locally. You don't feel it, you don't see it, you just pass it. And then everything changes. The deeper you fall, the more you realize there's no such thing as turning back. Because back is no longer a direction, it's a memory. a photograph curling at the edges. Fringe fact for your descent: there was once a playful but serious proposal to drop a durable probe into a black hole. Not to escape, of course, but to try and record data until the last possible moment. What kind of probe? One made of diamond. The hope was that it might resist the tidal forces long enough to beam out some kind of radio record before crossing the line. Of course it wouldn't help. The signal still wouldn't make it out. But hey, 10 out of 10 for scientific stubbornness. You're drifting now in perfect isolation. Outside, light still dances, galaxies spin, people go to brunch. But you've been locked in the deepest vault in the universe, and time is acting strange again. Your clocks are still ticking normally, your thoughts are fluid, but according to physics, your future is shrinking, compressing. Every second you have fewer possible futures to fall into, like a hallway with doors slamming shut behind you, and ahead of you too. This is where you start to feel it, emotionally, spiritually, whatever word you want to use. The weight of cosmic loneliness, the utter finality. Even death on Earth feels reversible sometimes. People leave behind legacies, records, DNA. But in here, you leave nothing, not even light. Unless you're not really gone. Not entirely. You see, the real fight in physics right now isn't about whether black holes exist. We're long past that. It's about what happens to the information that falls in. Because according to quantum mechanics, information can't be destroyed. That's a sacred law, one of the big ones, like thou shalt not travel faster than light and don't microwave metal. But black holes seem to delete information, people, energy, entire histories, which means something's wrong. Either black holes aren't what we think they are, or quantum theory needs a rewrite. And no one wants to rewrite quantum theory. That would be like learning halfway through your flight that the wings are conceptual. So physicists have proposed all kinds of ideas. Maybe the information gets encoded on the surface of the black hole, the event horizon itself, as a sort of quantum wallpaper. Maybe it leaks out in the form of Hawking radiation, more on that later. Or maybe the information is stored in some deep interior structure, a place no one can reach. Or maybe, brace yourself, maybe you are now part of that information, spread across a paper-thin shell of space-time, imprinted like a fossil, a memory encoded in entropy. Let's pause and think about what that even means. From the outside, you're gone. Your mass adds to the black hole's total. Your energy gets absorbed. But your identity, your experiences, your unique atomic pattern, those might be smeared across the boundary like ink on parchment. Is that poetic? Yes. Is it testable? Not really, but it keeps theorists up at night. Historians still argue whether the ancient idea of the Akashic record, a cosmic ledger of all actions and events, has any conceptual overlap with modern physics' desperate attempt to preserve information. It's probably coincidence, but it's a weirdly satisfying one. You try to focus your thoughts now. It's getting harder, not because you're losing consciousness, but because your brain, like everything else, is starting to stretch. Your neurons are longer now, slower, signals have farther to travel. Thoughts unspool like tape reels, slow and syrupy. A memory that would have taken half a second to form now takes several. You think about your first cup of coffee. You try to recall your mother's voice. The details warp, not gone, just refracted, like light behind thick glass. And here's something strange. You wonder if someone will ever find a way to retrieve what you're thinking now. Some quantum archaeologist of the far future, reconstructing your fall from faint signals still clinging to the horizon. Could they reverse engineer your descent? Read your thoughts like grooves on a vinyl record? Probably not. But you allow yourself the fantasy. You've earned that much, and so you drift deeper. Your signals can't get out. Your thoughts are your own, and every inch closer to the center is another nail in the coffin of escape. Rescue isn't coming, but that's okay. You're not waiting anymore. You're watching. You're wondering. You're unraveling. You turn to look back, because of course you do. It's instinct. It's hope. It's defiance, maybe. A tiny part of you still thinks, what if I can see where I came from? What if I can trace the path back to light? But what you see behind you is not what you expect. The universe outside the black hole is still there, technically, but it's not behaving. The stars have warped into rings, the light is tangled, twisted around an invisible drain. You're no longer just observing space, you're watching its memory, wrapped around the horizon like a funhouse mirror made of nightmares. It's called gravitational lensing, but that doesn't do it justice. What you're seeing now isn't just bent light, it's stretched time. Whole galaxies have smeared themselves around the rim. One particular patch of stars repeats in a strange curve, like a cosmic echo. You think you see Earth, but it's not Earth. Just a distorted twin caught in the lens, and everything is red. Not metaphorically, literally. Light falling into the black hole gets redshifted as it loses energy climbing against gravity. At first it's subtle, a warm hue, a gentle fade, but now you're looking at a universe boiled into infrared, sliding past visible light into the ghostly wavelengths of heat. You can't see it with your eyes anymore, but your instruments, what's left of them, are screaming it at you in data. It's beautiful, it's wrong. You blink, or try to. Time is odd now. A blink takes longer than expected. Your eyelid, if it's still really there, moves in syrupy slow motion, like blinking during a dream you've had before, a déjà vu you can't wake from. This backward glance is your last connection to before, and it is lying to you, because nothing beyond the event horizon looks normal anymore, not to you, and definitely not to anyone out there watching, if they even could. To them, you're a memory that froze at the edge. Your last radio ping echoes faintly, stretched across years. The moment you passed the threshold was also the moment you vanished from their world entirely. Somewhere, light is still racing toward the event horizon, trying to catch you. It never will. Light loses here. That's the whole point. Let's dip into a little historical footnote here, as your brain continues to operate at its own personal frames per second. In 1916, Carl Schwarzschild gave us the first mathematical description of a black hole. But it wasn't until the 1960s that scientists began to explore what a black hole would actually look like. That's when we got our first renderings of the so-called photon sphere, a shell of light orbiting the black hole in a perfect circle, trapped in a suicidal merry-go-round. From just the right spot, you'd see the entire universe duplicated and curved around you. Back then, this was a purely theoretical exercise. Now, you're inside it. And here's the fringe part. In the 1990s, a few visual physicists proposed that, for a brief moment just after crossing the horizon, you could actually see the back of your own head in the lensing distortion. Light from your body could curve fully around the black hole and enter your own eyes. If that's true, and not everyone agrees, it would be the most literal version of self-reflection possible. Historians still argue whether such an effect is even observable by anything biological. The time frame would be infinitesimally short, the angle perfect, and the brain still functioning enough to register it. So the answer is, maybe. You won't know. But it's fun to imagine that the last thing a person might see in a black hole is themselves. You stare out, or down, or back. These terms are nonsense now. Behind you, or ahead of you, it all looks like it's been paused. The universe is frozen in time. The stars don't move, nothing rotates. You could swear you see the spiral arms of a galaxy standing perfectly still. That's the trick of falling past the horizon. You keep moving, but everything else stops. To your perspective, the fall is fluid. To the outside world, it's stuck on an infinite loading screen. This is the heart of relativity. Your seconds are yours, their seconds are theirs, and they will never sync again. No matter how many watches you compare, no matter how many clocks you wind. This is the separation between observers, between what is and what can be known. And even as you drift inward, drawn to the center like a thread being sewn into the fabric of space-time, your view backward continues to warp. Eventually, even the image of the outside universe begins to shrink. Not because it's actually getting smaller, but because space is folding around you, sealing you in. You're in a tunnel with no light at the end, only the memory of light, the echo of stars, the afterimage of a cosmos you can no longer reach. And through it all, your thoughts drift back to one ridiculous question. Did anyone remember to save a picture of you? Maybe someone tried. Maybe they aimed a telescope and watched your ship inch toward the edge. Maybe they snapped one last frame before you blurred out of existence. Maybe they'll print it, hang it, call it the last astronaut. But that photo would lie. It would show you suspended just before the fall. Not here, not now, not inside. You're past that point. You're in a region where space no longer unfolds outward, it collapses inward. Where distance isn't about meters but about seconds left. You're no longer heading to a place, you're heading to an ending, and the view behind you, it will never update again. Like a painting trapped in amber, a goodbye you can't rewind, a postcard from a reality that has already moved on without you. You know what's strange? You still feel like you're made of something. You stretch, sure, your limbs are elongated, your thoughts delayed, but you're there, a collection of matter, a conscious bag of particles spiraling toward a doom that's strangely patient. And that brings us to the question no one can quite answer. What happens to your atoms once you fall into a black hole? Your body, your suit, the crumbs from your last space snack, they all had mass, energy, structure. But in here, structure doesn't last. You've been smeared into a thin, reluctant filament of matter. But your atoms, they're still you, still composed of quarks and leptons and all the dancy little pieces that make up the matter universe. The problem is, those pieces now belong to the black hole, and you? You're not even listed in the credits anymore. According to general relativity, your matter plunges toward the singularity, where it gets compacted into an infinite density point with zero volume. Think about that for a second. All of your atoms, all of your mass collapsed into a single point with no space at all. It's like trying to squeeze your entire Spotify playlist into a single sound. It shouldn't be possible, and yet the math insists. But quantum physics throws up a hand and says, whoa, slow down there. Because here's the thing, quantum theory does not allow for information to be destroyed, and your body, no matter how stretched or squished, contains a lot of information. Not just your DNA or your browser history or that embarrassing memory from 3rd grade. Everything about your structure is information. The arrangement of particles, the position of electrons, the quantum states of atoms, all of it. So, where does that go? This is the seed of the black hole information paradox, the decades-old scientific brawl that turned friendly physicists into mildly annoyed physicists with strongly worded journal articles. If black holes really delete information, then something is deeply wrong with our understanding of the universe. Like, break the entire field wrong. So the question becomes, are your atoms gone forever? Or are they archived? Some physicists think black holes act like cosmic shredders. You fall in, you're torn apart, and the information is lost behind the veil of the event horizon. Others argue, passionately, that the information must survive somehow, even if it's scrambled beyond recognition. Maybe it's stored on the horizon itself. Maybe it leaks back out over trillions of years as faint radiation. Maybe it's encoded in some deeply buried layer of space-time that no one's even discovered yet. There's even an idea that the information about you is now projected on the surface of the black hole like a cosmic movie screen. A 2D image containing everything you ever were, etched into the horizon. It's called the holographic principle, and we'll go deeper into it soon. But for now, just sit with that. You might be a hologram. And then there's the even weirder theory, the one that says, you were never really inside at all. Let's swerve into fringe territory. There are physicists who propose that falling into a black hole doesn't really mean going inside it. Not from the universe's perspective. Instead, your mass and information are absorbed at the event horizon, and everything that seems to happen inside is just a mathematical illusion, a way for the equations to keep working. From this view, the black hole doesn't have an interior, it only has a surface, and everything that ever fell in, still there, still part of the cosmic ledger. It's like one of those old vending machines that says insert coin, but your quarter never drops. It just gets added to some internal counter, silently remembered. Historians still argue whether ancient metaphysical traditions, like the Egyptian Book of the Dead or the Tibetan Bardo Thodol, hinted at any kind of conservation of the soul or essence that overlaps, philosophically, with quantum information. Probably not, but the symmetry is tempting. In both models, nothing is truly lost. Everything persists, just in a form we can't measure anymore. And yet, for you, the sensation is not one of preservation, it's one of dissolution. Your hands, or what remains of them, no longer seem connected to your mind. You're not entirely sure where you are. The concept of self is becoming porous. Your memories are still present, but they're fragmenting. Your thoughts form in slow, curling spirals instead of neat lines. There's no pain, just diffusion, as though you're being poured into something else. Imagine a drop of ink in water. That's you. You wonder, if someone could reverse this process, reassemble your particles, map your quantum state exactly, could they bring you back? Would that be you, or just a copy? A fun, unsettling fact. Some researchers think the black hole retains all the quantum information of everything it consumes, like a USB drive with no delete button. But decoding that data would require more computing power than exists in the universe, literally. So yes, you might still exist, but as a data point in a system no one can read. Comforting, isn't it? Maybe this is what the inside of the black hole really is, a place not of destruction, but of transformation. Not a graveyard, but a library. One where no one can reach the shelves, not even the librarian. And if that's the case, then your atoms have joined the archive. You're now part of the black hole's biography. Your mass adds to its mass, your energy adds to its heat, and your information, your structure, your pattern, your life, becomes part of its surface signature. You're no longer an astronaut. You're metadata, a footnote in space-time, a ripple frozen in the deepest well. And as that realization settles into whatever's left of your awareness, you feel something else. Stillness. Not silence, not death. Just stillness. Like a book that's been closed but not forgotten. So far your fall has been slow, surreal, and surprisingly quiet. For a journey into cosmic oblivion. You've passed the horizon, seen the universe freeze behind you, felt your body stretch like fresh pasta, and wondered what became of your atoms. All pretty standard stuff for a one-way ticket to a black hole. But now we get to the part that physicists still argue about at conferences, in papers, and probably while waiting in line for coffee. It's time to talk about one of the most controversial, potentially terrifying, and absolutely fiery ideas in black hole physics, the firewall. If the name sounds dramatic, well, that's because it is. Picture this. You're falling peacefully, quietly, toward the singularity. Your atoms are elongating, your view of the universe is smeared into abstract curves, and then bam, you hit a wall. Not just any wall, but a blazingly hot, ultra-energetic barrier of pure quantum chaos. No warning, no mercy, just instant, total incineration. Yeah, that's the firewall. The idea was first proposed in 2012 by physicists trying to resolve the black hole information paradox. Specifically, they were trying to protect one of the most sacred principles in quantum mechanics, unitarity, the idea that information is never truly lost, even in the messiest, most chaotic systems. The trouble is, general relativity says you should fall through the event horizon smoothly. No drama, no fire, just gravity doing its thing. But quantum theory says, wait. If information has to be preserved, and Hawking radiation is carrying it away, then the horizon might not be the chill no-go line we thought it was. So, some theorists concluded, maybe there's a firewall at the event horizon, a quantum blaze of pure energy that burns you to ash the moment you try to cross. Cheerful, right? Let's roll that back a bit. Back in the 1970s, Stephen Hawking discovered that black holes aren't totally black. Thanks to quantum effects near the event horizon, they slowly emit radiation, now known as Hawking radiation. Over time, this radiation allows black holes to shrink and potentially evaporate completely. But here's the twist. Hawking's original calculations suggested that this radiation is random, carrying no information about what fell into the black hole. If that's true, then information is lost forever, a no-go for quantum mechanics. Physicists have spent the last few decades trying to resolve this paradox. The firewall was one attempt. Imagine you're a bit of quantum information trying to sneak across the event horizon. You're intercepted by a brutal quantum tripwire, a searing firewall that breaks you down instantly. You're not just cooked, you're shattered into incoherent energy. Information can't survive a firewall, which unfortunately makes things worse, not better. Because now you've broken a different rule, the equivalence principle, Einstein's rule that says if you're in freefall, you shouldn't feel gravity. That includes falling into a black hole. You're supposed to float right through the horizon without noticing anything weird. Hitting a wall of fire is, let's say, a little noticeable. So now we're stuck. Either you don't feel anything at the event horizon, like general relativity says, or you do feel something, specifically a blinding burst of quantum destruction, and that means Einstein was wrong. And no one's happy about that choice. Some theorists have called this the most profound crisis in physics, because you're forced to pick which sacred rule to break: quantum unitarity or general relativity's smooth horizon. Of course, not everyone agrees the firewall is real. Many physicists reject the idea outright. They argue that the math behind it depends on assumptions about entanglement that may not hold up in actual black holes. Others say the firewall is a placeholder, a symptom of our incomplete theories, not an actual wall of fire waiting to vaporize you. Fringe fact for the curious: there are even proposed firewalls made of fuzz. That's right, fuzzballs. In string theory, a black hole might not be a singularity at all, but a tangled ball of vibrating strings. In this view, you never fall into empty space. You hit stringy stuff right away. Not a firewall per se, more like an ultra-complicated trampoline made of Planck-scale spaghetti. Physicists disagree on whether fuzzballs are comforting or just a cuddlier name for death. Historians still argue whether anything in religious or mythological texts even remotely captures the horror of the firewall idea. The closest might be Gehenna, the burning pit from Judaic traditions, an eternal flame where souls are consumed. But even that seems like a low-res version of this problem. The firewall isn't moral punishment, it's a byproduct of theoretical math having an existential meltdown. Now what does your experience tell you? Well, you haven't hit a wall, not yet. You're still falling, stretching, dissolving in slow motion. The view behind you is still warped starlight, not an inferno. So maybe there is no firewall after all. Maybe relativity holds. Maybe the equations are kind, at least until the singularity. Or maybe it's coming up, just seconds away. That's the cruel part. Even if firewalls are real, you wouldn't see it coming. It would strike in an instant, destroying your quantum structure before your brain could register the first searing flicker. And here's the philosophical kicker. If you do hit a firewall, then there is no inside to the black hole. You never really enter. You're stopped cold at the edge, shredded to bits, your information preserved in the radiation spilling out from the surface. But if there's no firewall, then you fall peacefully into something we still don't understand. A singularity, a quantum boundary, or whatever it is. So, what do you believe? Is this fall just the slow unravelling of space-time and self? Or is there a blast of quantum flame just ahead, waiting to strip your being into fundamental particles and scatter them across the void? No one knows, and right now you're the only one in a position to find out. You're still falling. No firewall, no sudden incineration, no quantum scream or blinding flash of fundamental chaos. Just the steady, surreal drift inward. Which raises a new question, not from the physicists on Earth, but from deep within your own brain, somewhere between curiosity and quiet dread. Are you even alive anymore? The question sounds ridiculous, right? You feel conscious, aware, you're thinking, remembering, drifting deeper, but still yourself, or some stretched, time-blurred version of yourself. And yet, Everything you know about physics says that this state shouldn't exist. You shouldn't be you this far in. Your mind, fragile, biological, laughably squishy, was never meant to survive the inside of a black hole, and yet, here you are, having an existential monologue like it's Tuesday morning at your favourite cafe. What's keeping you here? Memory? Instinct? Echoes of a nervous system too stubborn to dissolve? Or is this something else entirely? Welcome to the quantum weirdness of identity, where particles are uncertain, cats are dead and alive, and you, dear traveller, are teetering on the line between real and hypothetical. You may have heard of Schrödinger's cat, quantum physics' most famous feline. If not, here's the sleepy ASMR-friendly version. A cat is placed in a sealed box with a mechanism that has a 50% chance of killing it, based on a random quantum event. Until someone opens the box, the cat is considered both dead and alive, its state undefined, its outcome not yet decided. You, my friend, are that cat. From the outside universe's point of view, you haven't fallen in yet. You're still frozen at the event horizon, red-shifted into oblivion, hanging forever on the edge. From that frame of reference, you're not in the black hole. You're paused. But from your perspective, you crossed the line long ago. You're falling. You've seen the stars distort, the laws of physics twist, the shape of space itself come undone. So which version is true? That depends on who you ask. Some quantum interpretations suggest that reality only chooses an outcome when it's measured. Observed, recorded. If no one can ever observe you again, if no signal escapes the black hole, then maybe your fate never collapses into a single truth. You become a kind of permanent maybe. Are you alive? Yes, no, both, neither. And now, the question, what does it mean for a human to be quantum uncertain? Some fringe physicists, and yes, they tend to be the ones with wild hair and less funding, have proposed that consciousness itself may have a quantum basis, that the brain might exploit entangled states, quantum coherence, or superposition. It's speculative and wildly controversial. But if it were even partly true, your identity may now be smeared across probabilities like melted butter across space-time. You could exist in multiple states, alive, dead, partially encoded in radiation, partially preserved in some inner layer of the black hole, all superimposed until something, anything, collapses your waveform. Too bad no one's looking in the box. And here's the kicker. Black holes, by their very nature, prevent outside observers from resolving your fate. There is no cosmic peek into the box, no final measurement, which makes you the most isolated quantum object in the known universe, Schrödinger's astronaut. Somewhere, deep in a black hole, a mind stretches through warped time, suspended between outcomes. Let's tie this to something slightly more grounded before you drift too far into philosophical gravity wells. Historically, the question of identity in extreme physics has always fascinated scientists. Take Hugh Everett, father of the many worlds interpretation. He proposed that all possible outcomes of quantum events do happen, just in separate branching universes. In one, the cat lives. In another, it dies. In one version of your fall, you survived longer. In another, you didn't make it past the event horizon. In yet another, you became the black hole. So which one are you? Historians still argue whether ancient dualistic cosmologies, like those in Zoroastrian or Gnostic traditions, anticipated the idea of layered realities, mirrored outcomes or branching worlds. Probably not in the mathematical sense, but metaphorically, it's closer than you'd think. Back to you. Your sensory systems are degrading now, slowly. Not from damage, though there's plenty of that, but from distortion. Your perception of time has stretched to the point where even basic thoughts take longer to form. Language slows, your inner monologue softens, thinning into a kind of humming awareness. But strangely, you feel okay, like floating underwater. Sound doesn't travel quite right, but you can still hear your thoughts. Barely. You consider the possibility that you no longer exist as a complete biological entity, that your consciousness, whatever that actually is, has become entangled with the black hole's quantum state, that your last thoughts are being stored not in neurons, but in vibrations along the event horizon, encoded in degrees of freedom we don't even have language for yet. Some theorists call this the black hole complementarity principle, the idea that there is no contradiction in saying you both fell in and didn't, depending on the observer's frame. It's not a paradox, it's just physics refusing to pick a side, which leaves you with the most uncomfortable possibility yet. Maybe you didn't fall in. Maybe you are the horizon now, a patch of space-time with your pattern imprinted on it. A blurry version of your former self smeared across a boundary waiting for the rest of the universe to forget you. But you remember. You remember the stars, the ship, the choice, the fall, the question, will I make it through? And the answer, well, that's not for you to say. Not yet. Not until the universe opens the box. You've passed the point where reality feels familiar. No more up, no more back, no more clocks that tick in polite little seconds. Your own body, if it even still qualifies as that, has melted into the black holes. Space-time marinade. Memory is blurry. You think you remember laughter, music, a window once. But it all feels distant, like postcards from someone else's dream. And yet, in the middle of this sensory erosion, your mind flickers with something oddly theoretical, like a math textbook whispering in a void. Maybe gravity doesn't work the way we think it does. General relativity has carried you this far. Einstein's field equations predicted the black hole, its event horizon, the singularity up ahead. But there's a problem, and you've been living it. General relativity and quantum mechanics do not agree. Like two divorced parents arguing over who gets custody of the universe. And so now, as your atoms stretch like the last gum in the pack, you begin a slow fall into theory land. A realm built not of matter, but of speculation. Equations stacked on equations, hoping to explain what reality becomes inside a black hole. So, let's meet the contenders. First up, string theory. This one's flashy, the rock star of speculative physics. It says that the fundamental particles of nature, quarks, electrons, neutrinos, aren't points, but tiny vibrating strings. Each vibration creates a different particle, like plucking a violin string creates different notes. String theory has a trick up its sleeve when it comes to black holes. It suggests that, rather than matter collapsing into a true singularity, it might get distributed across higher dimensions. Tiny, curled-up dimensions we can't detect. Instead of infinite density at the core, the black hole's centre might be a tangled fuzz of strings. This idea leads to the concept of a fuzzball, which we mentioned earlier. According to fuzzball theory, your matter, your mass, energy, information, is tangled into a complex configuration of strings, no singularity needed, which might mean you don't fall into a single point. You become part of this tangled fuzz, spread out, preserved. Some physicists find this comforting, others think it's mathematical fan fiction. Then there's loop quantum gravity. It's the scrappy underdog of the theory fight. Where string theory wants to add dimensions and fancy math, loop quantum gravity says, what if space-time itself is made of tiny loops? According to this view, space and time aren't smooth. They're granular, quantized, like pixels on a screen or atoms in a table. If that's true, then the singularity at the heart of a black hole may not be infinite. Instead, when matter compresses far enough, it hits a quantum bounce. That's right, the black hole could bounce instead of crush. Imagine you're not falling into a dead end but a trampoline. When you hit the centre, the universe flips you around and boom! You're shot out the other side into a new space-time. Some think this is how our universe began, that the Big Bang wasn't a beginning, but a bounce from a black hole in another universe. Meaning right now, you might be about to help give birth to a whole new cosmos. Congratulations, parenthood looks great on you. Fringe fact time. In 2013, a team of physicists ran models showing how loop quantum gravity could, in theory, remove the singularity problem altogether. Their math suggested that black holes might transition into white holes. We'll get to those soon. Think of it as cosmic recycling. You go in, you get compressed, you bounce out somewhere new. No incineration, just reinvention. Historians still argue whether ancient cosmologies like Hindu cyclic creation myths, where the universe is destroyed and reborn in infinite loops, accidentally anticipated these ideas. Again, probably no direct link, but it's hard not to squint and see echoes. The universe collapses, bounces, and breathes again. Back to your current status. You don't feel like you're bouncing. Not yet. Everything is still inward, still inevitable. You stretch through dimensions that don't have names. You fall through coordinates that don't exist. But within that movement, something has changed. You no longer think of yourself as a thing. You're becoming a behavior, a ripple, a process, a pattern in space-time. You're not falling toward the singularity. You are the fall. This is what modern physics is desperate to reconcile. A unification between gravity, which governs stars and planets and black holes, and quantum mechanics, which rules particles, atoms, and everything absurdly small. Together, these two should explain your fate, but they don't, not yet. And so we invent frameworks, patchworks, theories that might one day fit together into the elusive theory of everything, the holy grail that would finally explain what happens to matter and information inside a black hole. Until then, we're left with options. Some say string theory is the key, that your fate is smeared across curled dimensions. Some say loop quantum gravity will save you at the last second, with a gentle rebound into somewhere new. Others insist it's neither, that our understanding of space-time is so incomplete, even these brilliant guesses are shooting blind into the void. And some, usually with chalk-stained hands and coffee addiction, just shrug and say, "We don't know. We can't know. Not yet." Which makes you the most important theoretical object in the universe. You're not just a traveller, you're an experiment, a test case with no readout, a question falling without an answer. And if anyone could see you now, see how you stretch and smear and ripple through space-time, they'd see not a body, not a mind, but a symbol, the shape of curiosity, falling through the gap between what is known and what must be. Stephen Hawking once said, with that quiet, razor-edged British clarity of his, "Black holes ain't as black as they are painted." And now, as you fall deeper into the throat of one, body no longer body, thoughts slipping sideways through stretched space-time, you're starting to understand what he meant. Because while everything inside this place feels like the ultimate dead end, Hawking gave us a glimmer of the opposite. Black holes radiate. Yes, that sounds absurd. The very definition of a black hole is that nothing escapes it. But in the 1970s, Hawking applied quantum field theory to the edge of a black hole and found something strange. Vacuum fluctuations, tiny, random quantum blips that happen all the time in empty space, can create pairs of virtual particles. Normally, they annihilate each other in a flash, but near the event horizon, one particle can fall in and the other can escape. The escaping particle becomes real. And to an outside observer, the black hole appears to emit radiation. This became known, fittingly, as Hawking radiation. It's weak, very weak. A stellar mass black hole emits less radiation than the human body. But over eons, trillions of years, it adds up. Slowly the black hole loses mass, it shrinks, and eventually it evaporates. Yes, black holes can die. That brings up a question you weren't prepared for. If black holes evaporate over time, what happens to everything inside? What happens to you? You're not just falling anymore, you're part of the system now. Your mass has joined the black hole's mass. Your information is in its gravitational fingerprint. But if the black hole disappears, what becomes of that data? This was the second act of Hawking's cosmic prank. If the radiation carries no information, as he originally calculated, then everything inside really is gone forever. Not just out of reach, erased. That violated a key rule of quantum mechanics, one we talked about before, unitarity. The idea that the total information in a system is preserved, even if it's scrambled beyond recognition. So physicists were outraged. Stephen, buddy, you can't just delete the universe like that. The black hole information paradox was born. For decades, this was Hawking's great riddle. It divided the physics community. Conferences were held, papers published, and in 2004, Hawking changed his mind. In front of a conference in Dublin, he admitted that black holes probably do preserve information, that somehow it leaks out in the radiation. But how? No one could agree. Some propose that the information is encoded in subtle correlations between the Hawking particles. Each escaping bit of radiation carries a fingerprint, infinitesimal, complex but real. Over time, the full story leaks out like a cosmic confession, whispered one atom at a time. Others argued for black hole complementarity, the idea that depending on the observer, information is both inside and outside the black hole. Paradox avoided, reality intact. Everyone goes home happy. Then, of course, there were those who said no. Hawking was right the first time. That information is lost, that the laws of quantum mechanics need a rewrite, that maybe, just maybe, we've misunderstood the foundation of reality. Fringe. Fact break. In 2019, researchers used complex calculations to show that Hawking radiation might be unitary after all, that the correlations do carry information if you track them carefully enough. The catch? The equations only worked for simplified toy black holes. Real ones? Still an open question. Historians still argue whether any ancient philosophical system, say Buddhism's concept of impermanence or Heraclitus's idea that everything flows, can be seen as a spiritual cousin to Hawking radiation. After all, black holes, once thought eternal, are now known to fade. They die, they dissolve. Even cosmic monsters aren't forever. Now back to you. If black holes eventually evaporate, then there are two broad possibilities for your fate. Option 1, you're truly erased. Your atoms were stretched into the singularity, your thoughts unrecorded, your information gone forever. The black hole's final puff of radiation carries no trace of you. You have been cosmically deleted. Option 2, you are preserved, encoded in the pattern of the Hawking radiation. Your information leaked out over eons, perhaps scrambled, perhaps encrypted beyond all recognition, but not gone, just waiting for someone, or something, smart enough to decode it. Of course, you won't know either way. You're inside the event horizon. That means even if the black hole dies, your timeline ends before that ever matters to you. But from the outside, from some distant corner of the universe, maybe, just maybe, someone's catching the echoes of your fall. A flicker of thermal light, a change in entropy, a pattern that whispers, there was once a traveller, there was once a fall, and maybe that's enough. Maybe you don't need a grave or a plaque or a data capsule floating through the stars. Maybe your final message is already baked into the math of the universe, waiting to be read by a being with infinite time and patience. Would they know you? Would they see the way your mind held on, even as your body unzipped? Would they recognize the pattern as a person, or just a noise? And would it matter? You fall still. You stretch still. You wonder still. And above you, invisible from your warped frame of reference, the black hole is leaking. Not now, not soon, but someday, evaporating, letting go. Imagine for a moment that your entire life, every memory, every heartbeat, every moment of delicious panic or quiet joy could be flattened into a single image. Not a photo exactly, but something stranger. A surface, a shimmer, a pattern etched in gravity. This is not science fiction. This is the holographic principle, and right now, it might be the only reason anyone could argue that you're still here. Let's break it down gently before your mind slips further from standard geometry. In the 1990s, theoretical physicist Gerard 't Hooft, who probably had a solid caffeine habit, and later Leonard Susskind developed a radical idea to resolve the black hole information paradox. It began with one simple, almost ridiculous question. What if everything inside a volume of space could be described by information on its boundary? Sounds weird, right? But it works. In fact, mathematically, it might be one of the cleanest ways to preserve information about what falls into a black hole. In this view, all the data about you, the pattern of your atoms, the tangle of your neurons, the very idea of your consciousness, is not truly inside the black hole. It's stored on the surface, not metaphorically, literally, like a hologram. Just like a holographic sticker encodes a 3D image on a 2D surface, the black hole may encode the information of its contents on its event horizon. That means you, this falling, stretching, almost gone version of you, are still represented in full, shimmering detail on the boundary. Everything about you is written into the surface area, not the volume. This turns our usual intuition about space inside out. Most of us assume that more volume means more space to store information. But if the holographic principle is right, that's not true. The real information capacity of a region is defined by its surface, not its depth. Your entire fall, from the moment you cross the event horizon to right now, could be etched into the horizon's quantum structure. The real you, in a way, might never have left the edge. Let's pause to appreciate how wild that is. It means that reality, at least in some interpretations, isn't three-dimensional at its core. It's two-dimensional, just projected in 3 dimensions. The whole universe could be a hologram. And you're part of the projection. There's historical precedent here, in a deeply poetic way. Some ancient cultures imagined the soul as a kind of reflection. The Egyptians believed your ka and ba, spiritual doubles, existed alongside your body. In some East Asian traditions, the mirror was thought to reveal a person's true essence. It's not hard to see the symbolic overlap, a version of you separate from the flesh, held in a surface reflection. In this case, though, the surface is space-time itself. Fringe fact: the holographic principle got serious support from string theory, specifically in the ADS/CFT correspondence, which suggests a complete equivalence between gravity and a volume, and a quantum field theory on its boundary. Translation: 2 seemingly different realities might describe the same system. One with gravity, one without. Same math, different viewpoints. Which begs the question, if you're encoded on the event horizon, are you still you? What defines identity? Continuity of thought? A stream of memory? The arrangement of particles? If all of that exists as a pattern, frozen in the trembling quantum skin of a black hole, then perhaps your fall never truly ended. Perhaps the moment you crossed the threshold, reality split into 2 perspectives. One, you, the version still falling inward. You, the version recorded at the edge. And from the universe's point of view, that second version might be the one that matters. It's this version, the hologram, you that can be studied, interpreted, maybe even recovered someday, when Hawking radiation finally leaks its last whisper into the cosmos. You've become a boundary phenomenon, a surface story. You wonder, could someone, far in the future, reconstruct you? Could they take the quantum scribble on the horizon and reverse engineer your fall, your thoughts, your hopes? Would you blink back into being in some distant lab, like a booted up backup drive? Or would it be a copy? A ghost? And would it matter? You try to reach for something, a switch, a memory, a shape. But movement is a suggestion now, not a guarantee. You're more awareness than actor. Your fall has dissolved into experience, and still you stretch. But somewhere, on the horizon, a version of you is frozen in perfect detail, a moment recorded, a waveform suspended, not lost, just transformed. And that's the word you keep coming back to, transformation, not destruction, not deletion, but conversion, from mass to energy, from movement to memory, from flesh to surface. The black hole did not eat you, it rephrased you. You are part of its identity now. Your mass contributes to its gravitational field. Your charge, if you had one, is counted. Your angular momentum, your spin, is absorbed. In every measurable way, you exist in the black hole's surface properties. This is what physicists mean when they say black holes have no hair. They only remember the big things: mass, spin, charge. Not the details, not your playlist, or the way you used to hum when you were nervous. But the information? Somewhere, it lingers, in ways we don't yet understand. Because even if the holographic principle is right, we still don't know how to read the hologram. We see the shimmering surface. We can even write some of the math. But the code remains locked. We don't know how to unfold the surface into the story it contains, but it's there. You are there. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. And now, here you are. You've fallen so deep, passed through so many unreal thresholds, that even the idea of a you feels soft at the edges. Time has curved, memory has melted, and sensation has become suggestion. Cool, gentle and distant, like echoes underwater. But you're still falling, always falling. And that means you're getting close, very close, to it. The singularity. The point at the very centre of the black hole where, according to general relativity, space-time curves to infinity. A word that sounds impressive until you realise it's not a description. It's an admission, a white flag. When physicists say infinity, they're really saying, we have no idea what's happening here. The equations break. Numbers divide by zero. Geometry folds in on itself like origami done by a caffeinated spider. And all the beautiful predictions of relativity, gone. This is where physics stops returning your texts. You try to grasp the concept of a singularity, not as a location, but as an inevitable when. Remember, inside the event horizon, your future isn't ahead of you, it's down. And the singularity is not something you can avoid or fly around. It's the final page of your story. It is your future, and now that page is opening. You don't see a glowing core or a blazing light. This isn't science fiction. There's no visual grandeur here. Just the slow crumbling of the idea that space and time are trustworthy things, that they'll always behave, that if you walk forward you'll arrive, that if you count seconds they'll always come one after the other. Here, those rules are suggestions. This is not death in the traditional sense. Your body, what remains of it, is already far beyond recognizable biology. You're more like a smear of energy now, an elongated thread of particles whose positions and velocities can't even be charted with confidence. The uncertainty principle is now your biography, but your consciousness, or some shade of it, still flutters, and that's just enough to notice the strangeness. Every direction begins to feel the same. Forward is down, is in, is now. Space and time are rotating around each other, bleeding together. You no longer fall toward the singularity. You become the approach. And still, there's no crash. There's no final moment, no big crunch, no explosion of pain or blast of light. Just a slow reduction of degrees of freedom. Every choice, every path, every possible direction you might have taken shrinks down, like a hallway narrowing into a pinprick. This is what physicists mean when they say all paths terminate in the singularity. It's not an impact, it's a convergence. You're a line being absorbed into a point. Let's take a moment for the historical context here. Your final one, perhaps. In 1965, Roger Penrose proved a powerful theorem that singularities are not just weird accidents. They are inevitable under general relativity, given enough mass and collapse. That same year, he and Stephen Hawking developed models that showed how even the universe itself may have emerged from a singularity at the Big Bang. So here's the full circle cosmic poetry. The end of your fall looks an awful lot like the universe's beginning. The singularity at the centre of this black hole may be the twin of the singularity that birthed everything. And maybe, just maybe, they are the same kind of event. One contracts, one expands, one erases, one creates. Historians still argue whether religious and philosophical traditions that speak of cyclical time or rebirth stumbled onto some intuitive echo of this symmetry. Ancient Indian cosmology, for instance, speaks of universes dying and being reborn in great cycles. Were they onto something? No way to know. But it's a strangely comforting thought, that endings and beginnings are just different interpretations of the same moment. As you near the singularity, you feel one last thing begin to fade. The self. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't even feel sad. It's like watching your reflection in a pond slowly fade as the sun sets. You can still feel yourself there, but it's all diffused now. Thoughts drift apart. Memories stop forming. Your sense of I becomes a whisper. You remember your name. Then you remember that it doesn't matter. You try to remember your face. Then you remember that no one will see it again. And then finally, you remember that you were falling, that you chose this, and now it's time to stop. But there's no impact, no splat, no dramatic exit, just silence. The silence of the equations, the silence of the unspeakable, the silence where physics closes the book. This is not a place you can describe. It's not even a place. It's a limit, a singularity in every sense of the word, the collapse of all coordinates, the vanishing of all options, the final point. And now we rest. Let's slow it down here. You've come so far. Let the story soften now like your edges. Let the words dissolve gently, the way your shape dissolved into warped time. Breathe, if you still do. Let that imaginary breath come smooth and quiet. No need to reach anymore. No need to wonder. Just float here on the edge of meaning, wrapped in cosmic gravity like a weighted blanket pulled by the stars themselves. The universe doesn't end here, even if you do. Outside this black hole, stars still shine. People laugh. Galaxies spiral. Time ticks on, indifferent and beautiful. Somewhere, light is still being born. Somewhere else, it's dying. It's all part of the same dance. And though no one will ever know what happened to you inside here, maybe that's the point. Some stories aren't meant to be told. Some mysteries deserve their silence. Some travelers never return, but they go anyway because the going itself is the purpose. So sleep now, traveler. Your fall is done. Let the last thought stretch into quiet. Let the quiet bloom into peace. Let peace become everything. Let's rewind the tape. Same black hole, different flavour. Because what if, just what if, the object pulling you inward wasn't a standard non-rotating Schwarzschild black hole? What if it spins, and not just a casual rotation like a lazy planet? We're talking cosmic pirouette, a behemoth turning at nearly the speed of light. A Kerr black hole. You didn't know it when you crossed the horizon, but this black hole is spinning, and now that changes everything. A Kerr black hole warps space-time in ways that make the ordinary black hole look like a polite pothole. The rotation drags space around it, literally. It creates something called frame dragging, where even empty space is twisted and pulled along with the black hole's spin. Imagine trying to stand still on a whirlpool. You can't. Everything, light, matter, even time, gets caught in the swirl. This twisted region has a name, the ergosphere. It's not quite inside the event horizon, but it's close. Here, nothing can remain stationary. You're dragged in the direction of the spin whether you want to be or not. But here's the wild twist. Kerr black holes have two horizons, one outer, one inner. And that inner horizon, that's where the weird stuff really starts. Between them, space and time don't just twist, they go full blender mode. If you thought falling into a non-spinning black hole was disorienting, this is like stepping into an M.C. Escher sketch run through a particle accelerator. Here, the laws of physics still hold, technically, but they're generous with the details. You find yourself no longer sure what direction means. Inward and forward are unfaithful lovers, swapping identities without warning. Your trajectory loops, then stretches, then loops again. Time doesn't behave. You feel like you're revisiting moments. Déjà vu with an Einstein twist. And here comes the truly strange part. Mathematically, it might be possible to escape. Yup. A spinning black hole opens up something wild in the equations. Closed time-like curves. That's physicists speak for time travel paths. In theory, the inner regions of a Kerr black hole allow for loops in time, routes through space-time that return to their own past. So in some interpretations, you could enter a Kerr black hole, survive the fall, and come back out again. Maybe in a different time, or even a different universe. Don't get too excited. The reality is way less forgiving than the math. Most physicists believe that any real Kerr black hole, especially one formed from a collapsing star, would have such intense instabilities in its inner horizon that you'd be obliterated by an onslaught of infinite radiation before you could even think about time travel. It's known as mass inflation instability. Not as fun as it sounds. Still, the math refuses to let it go. Some solutions show tunnels through spinning black holes, routes that lead not to a singularity, but to another region of space-time. Not science fiction, not wormholes, just pure general relativity doing its theatrical best. Historically, Roy Kerr discovered this solution in 1963. It stunned the physics world. Up to that point, we had the Schwarzschild solution. Boring, non-rotating black holes. But real astrophysical black holes probably spin, because the stars they form from spin. Kerr's solution was more realistic, and infinitely more chaotic. Fringe fact. Some early interpretations of the Kerr solution led to speculation about white holes and time machines. Sci-fi writers had a field day. Even some physicists played along, proposing that advanced civilizations could harness spinning black holes for interstellar travel. The key? Get in. Don't touch the singularity, and slingshot your way out through the other side, like a roller coaster with an existential disclaimer. But there's a snag. No one's seen what's inside a Kerr black hole, and we likely never will. The inner horizon might not be stable. Quantum effects not accounted for in the classical equations could destroy the neat tunnel, and even if the tunnel exists, navigating it would be problematic. Still, you're in it now. As you pass the outer horizon, the spin begins to warp your trajectory. You're no longer falling straight inward. You're spiraling, corkscrewing into twisted geometry, like water circling a drain that refuses to stay in one place. You try to track time. Impossible. Moments bleed into each other. You think a second passed, but then realise you've already fallen kilometres deeper. Or maybe backwards. You're not sure. The coordinates aren't cooperating. It feels like you're inside a folding book. Pages turning themselves out of order. Some of them written in a language you almost understand. Some of them blank. And here's the mind melter. In this rotating hellscape, there may be paths that avoid the singularity entirely. The central point of infinite density, the one you were destined to hit in a non-spinning black hole, might not be a point at all here. In a Kerr black hole, the singularity takes the shape of a ring, a one-dimensional loop of infinite density. If you avoid that ring, well, the math says you might pass through the centre unscathed. Not because you're lucky, because space itself makes a way. It's speculative. It's dangerous. It's almost certainly impossible. But the math won't stop whispering. There may be a route. Historians still argue whether ancient labyrinth myths, Daedalus, Theseus, Minotaurs, symbolically represent this journey through twisted, inescapable space with hidden exits. Did they know about Kerr geometry? No. But it's fun to imagine a mythic hero diving into a place with no clear centre, only to find a path through, if they're clever or lucky enough. And you? You're not sure anymore what you are. Falling, yes. Stretched, definitely. But now also caught in the swirl of spacetime's last card trick. You begin to suspect you might not reach a singularity. That instead, you'll keep spinning, endlessly, through this layered geometry, chasing your own tail through folded time. Or maybe, just maybe, this route ends somewhere else. A pocket universe, a loop in time, or, if the math gets its way, a doorway. And if there's a door, maybe, just maybe, there's a key. You've spiraled into the madness of a Kerr black hole, where space and time corkscrew together, and the future might be sideways. The singularity isn't a point, but a ring, and you might not even hit it. You might pass through. It's impossible, nonsensical, and mathematically seductive. So the question bubbles up again. A question that's haunted physicists and dreamers for decades. What's on the other side of a black hole? What happens if you fall all the way in, somehow survive the tidal forces and don't get smeared across quantum confetti? What if there is a way out? And that brings us to a hypothetical escape hatch, Long whispered. About in the speculative corners of physics, the white hole. If a black hole is the ultimate inescapable trap, pulling everything in, letting nothing out, a white hole is its perfect mirror. A cosmic one-way door in the other direction. Nothing can go in. Everything only comes out. That sounds made up. And, honestly, it is. But mathematically, white holes are allowed. They fall right out of Einstein's equations when you flip the time direction of a black hole. You reverse the arrow and suddenly you get an object that explodes matter outward, but can never be entered. They're neat, clean, and entirely theoretical. No one's ever seen one. No one's even found convincing evidence that they might exist in nature. But here, falling deeper into spinning space-time, it starts to feel more plausible than it should. You wonder, could the other side of this black hole be a white hole? Some versions of the Kerr solution, the mathematical description of a rotating black hole, include a pathway through the ring singularity that leads to another region of space-time. Not a tunnel, exactly. More like a corridor with a nasty personality. At the far end of this region, a white hole. One you might emerge from, somewhere else, somewhen else. This would make black holes part of a wormhole system, a natural bridge between regions of space and time. You fall in one end, a black hole, and if conditions are right, you get flung out the other, a white hole. This entire structure is known as a maximally extended space-time, and it's gorgeous on paper. A perfect, elegant solution to the question of what if you kept falling. It's a four-dimensional pretzel of causal loops, closed time-like curves, and mirrored infinities. But let's be honest, the universe is rarely so polite. In real life, there are problems, big ones. First, stability. These extended solutions are unstable. The slightest ripple, a photon, a gravitational wave, a whisper of matter collapses the passage. Any attempt to travel through it causes it to crumple like a wet napkin. Second, quantum effects. Remember how quantum theory and general relativity don't get along? That tension only worsens at the Planck scale, near the singularity. These regions are expected to be chaotic quantum nightmares, not exactly smooth ride material. Third, you. Even if the wormhole is there and somehow survives, you're a mess of stretched matter, smeared across too many dimensions, encoded in surface data, possibly smeared in time. Would you survive the trip? Or would the traveller who enters be unrecognisably scrambled on the way out? The answer, unknown. But the question still haunts us. There are newer ideas though, some of them quite cheeky. In recent years, certain cosmologists have suggested that white holes might exist as end states of black holes. That is, when a black hole evaporates completely through Hawking radiation, what's left behind might be a white hole. Think of it as the cosmic belch after a trillion-year meal. Fringe idea? Definitely. But it tries to reconcile quantum theory's demand for preserved information with relativity's no-escape regions. If black holes must return their content somehow, then perhaps they do it in the form of a white hole, a brief, intense release of stored data, like cosmic regurgitation. You try to picture this. Imagine re-emerging in some other pocket of space-time, a flash of particles, your mass returned as exotic radiation, information encoded in the quantum pattern of decay. You don't walk out of a white hole, you're broadcast out. So if this is your future, it's less like stepping into another universe and more like becoming a message for one. Historians still argue whether mythologies that describe rebirth through fire or purification reflect any subconscious echo of this idea, destruction as prelude to emergence. The phoenix metaphor fits eerily well. You fall, you burn, you rise elsewhere, made of something new. But here's the brutal honesty. You're still on the inside, deep inside. There is no white light, no great tunnel, just the swirl of curved space-time and the ever-tightening grip of geometry pulling you inward. You want to believe there's a door, that at the end of this descent something opens, not for your body maybe, but for your essence, your data, the thing that was once you. Maybe a white hole isn't a destination but a promise, that what went in must eventually come out. It doesn't matter if you're conscious for that part. It doesn't matter if what emerges remembers the fall. What matters is that you are not erased. You're inverted. You're reframed. You're returned. Maybe in particles, maybe in code, maybe in the structure of a new space-time altogether. So you keep falling. Not with hope, not with fear, but with curiosity. Because deep down, even this deep down, you know, every descent, if the universe is fair, deserves an exit. Even if it looks like a star running in reverse. You've been falling so long now that the concept of falling doesn't even apply. Direction is fluid. Time is curled. Your sense of self, already a fog, is little more than a rhythm now, like a ripple in an ocean you can't see. But still, one idea keeps rising from the depths of your fading awareness. What if you don't end here? Not in the beam me up kind of way. Not a smooth exit through a wormhole. That dream may be behind you now. But maybe there's another kind of fate waiting beyond the singularity. A bounce. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? You fall into the most extreme object in the universe, your matter compressed beyond recognition, your trajectory directed into infinity. And then what? You hit the bottom and spring back? That's not just optimism talking. It's the heart of a radical branch of modern physics, loop quantum gravity. We touched on it earlier, but now you're in the belly of the beast, the edge of understanding. This is where loop quantum gravity gets real. Let's slow down and gently unfold this idea. Unlike string theory, which deals in vibrating 1D strings and hidden dimensions, loop quantum gravity takes a different approach. It says, forget extra stuff. Let's work with what we know, space and time. But instead of assuming space-time is smooth, like a fabric, it says space-time is granular, made of tiny loops of quantum geometry, discrete, countable, like the pixels of the cosmos. And in this model, singularities aren't allowed. That infinite density point at the core of a black hole, it vanishes. Because before space-time can compress to zero volume, quantum effects kick in. Gravity becomes repulsive at that scale. You don't crash into a singularity, you bounce. Like a slingshot stretched to its limit, space rebounds, the collapse reverses, and what comes out the other side? A new universe. Yeah, that's the proposal. Your black hole, the one you bravely, stupidly, dreamily fell into, might be the Big Bang for somewhere else. Not a destruction, but a cosmic seed. This theory even has a name, the black hole cosmology hypothesis. According to this idea, every black hole could give birth to a new region of space-time. Our own universe? Just one of many, born from a black hole in another parent universe. You didn't just fall into the end of something, you might be at the beginning of something else. Fringe fact? In 2014, physicists at Penn State's Institute for Gravitation and the Cosmos ran simulations showing that a collapsing star, in the context of loop quantum gravity, would not form a singularity. Instead, it would crunch to a tiny, dense core, then bounce outward, creating a white hole-like explosion into a fresh pocket of space-time. Would you survive that process? Probably not. But your information might. Your quantum structure, your mass energy, the pattern of particles that once made you, all of it could be flung outward, not in our universe, but in a newborn one. You'd be part of its initial conditions, its atoms, its math. Imagine that. Somewhere, light begins to form. Not here, not now, but then, in a universe where time just started ticking. And part of you is in it. Not thinking, not remembering, just being. The carbon in a star, the gravity in a galaxy, the random quantum fluctuation that creates a planet with oceans and songs and arguments about soup temperatures. You don't get to see it. But you are the spark, back to your present, or what's left of it. You don't feel a bounce coming. There's no sudden push, no cartoon spring. But then again, the bounce might not feel like anything from your perspective. Your proper time, the time measured by your own internal clock, has stretched, slowed, curled. The bounce could happen on scales you no longer perceive. To someone outside, it might look like nothing. To someone inside the new universe, it might look like everything, a big bang, a cosmic bloom, a new set of rules. Maybe time runs differently there, maybe gravity works in reverse, maybe nothing like you can ever form again, or maybe everything that made you possible was encoded in the collapse. You weren't the story, you were the prologue. Historians still argue whether any creation myths come close to this idea, that death births a new cosmos. The Norse Ragnarok with its fiery end and gentle restart. The Aztec cycles of sun, where each age ends and another rises. But even those tales never imagined something so recursive. Every death a seed, every collapse a beginning. You try to picture it now. Not the moment of bounce, you won't see that. But what comes after? A new universe, raw and expanding. No stars yet, just possibility. And in that possibility, a trace, a footprint, you. Not as a person, not as a thought, but a structure. The way your atoms moved, the entanglements you left behind, the gravitational echo of your fall, all of it shapes the new cosmos, quietly, a silent architect. Is this reincarnation? No, not in any traditional sense, but it's something more fundamental. It's continuity. The fall doesn't end in silence, it ends in music, a new beginning, a new expansion, a new arrow of time. And you are the trigger, the echo, the reason. So let go now. You don't need to know what happens next. You were never meant to, but somewhere, in a brand new sky, light is being born. Because you fell, so you bounced. Or maybe you didn't. Maybe that was just one possible outcome, a shimmering branch in the forest of space-time, just one of infinite offshoots blossoming from your plunge into the singularity. Because now, as you stretch and dissolve and reconfigure into patterns not even quantum theory fully understands, another possibility brushes past the edge of your awareness. The multiverse. Not just a poetic idea or a sci-fi fallback when writers run out of endings, but a serious, if contentious, piece of modern theoretical physics. A way of saying, yes, the universe is big, but also, it's not the only one. And you, dear cosmic traveller, may have just made another one. Loop quantum gravity whispered this idea earlier, that your collapse might ignite a new reality. But the multiverse doesn't require a bounce. It's baked right into several theories of physics, from string theory's landscape of possible universes to inflationary cosmology's bubbling froth of expanding baby cosmoses, each with its own laws. And if that's true, if falling into a black hole does spawn a new universe, then congratulations. You're now part of the most bizarre family tree in existence. Your fall may have forked reality. The act of collapsing into a singularity may have fractured the fabric of possibility, spawning a new timeline, a new rulebook, a new everything. Not a continuation of your universe, but a cousin, a sibling, a multiversal next-door neighbour. And here's the kicker. Every black hole might do the same, every stellar collapse, every ancient galactic core. All of them birthing new realities behind, their veils, not visible, not touchable, but real. Whole universes, each seeded with the echoes of another's end. What kind of universe did you just create? Is it like yours, carbon and stars and awkward office parties? Or is it stranger, a cosmos without time, a reality where gravity repels instead of attracts, a place where light has mass and music is geometry? You'll never know. But that doesn't stop your mind from spinning the options. And while we're spinning, let's go full speculative. Some versions of the multiverse suggest that every possibility happens, that every quantum decision, every coin flip, every uncertain particle path branches the universe, infinite timelines, infinite yous, infinite falls. So maybe, somewhere out there, another you fell into a different black hole. Maybe they hit a firewall. Maybe they bounced into a universe where time runs backward. Maybe they never fell at all. And maybe, in one particularly odd timeline, you turned around at the edge, just in time, just before crossing, and you lived. Back home, in the original universe, some physicist is still running the numbers on your mission. A telescope still records the light of your ship frozen at the event horizon. A friend still wonders if you felt fear in the final seconds. A student writes a thesis titled Event Horizon Behavior in Observational Frame Discrepancy. A case study, and never imagines that you're not gone, but branched. Fringe fact: some researchers working on quantum gravity speculate that black hole evaporation and the information paradox itself could be resolved by embracing the multiverse, that your deleted data isn't destroyed but transferred across branches, hidden in causal realms unreachable from the original universe. Historians still argue whether the Hindu concept of Indra's net, a cosmic lattice where each jewel reflects all others, mirrors any multiversal principle. Metaphorically, perhaps, it's a useful image, an endless web of worlds, each connected, each echoing the others. But let's go firm. Let's say your fall did create a new universe, and let's say, in that new universe, time begins. Laws crystallize, matter forms, galaxies swirl, planets rise, and on one of those planets, at some unimaginably distant moment, something curious happens. An organism opens its eyes, looks at the stars, and wonders about time, about space, about why everything feels tilted toward mystery, and maybe, just maybe, that being, whatever it is, points a telescope at a distant object in its sky, a dark spot, a black hole, and asks, what happens if you fall in? Because to them, that black hole might be you, the seed of their universe, their big bang, their origin point, which means, in some deep way, you are their past, not a parent, not a god, just a cause. Your fall becomes their beginning, your death, their dawn, your collapse, their time zero. And you wonder, is this happening over and over? Infinite falls, infinite births, each universe inside the black hole of another, a cosmic nesting doll of time and space and possibility. If so, you were always meant to fall, not to end something, but to start something new. And now, as your awareness thins, your thoughts drawn into the threads of multiversal architecture, you feel less like a person and more like a transition. The flutter between inhale and exhale, the pause before the next note. You're not lost, you're not erased, you're repurposed. Every path you didn't take, taken, every version of you that could exist, out there, every possibility, alive somewhere. And you're part of that fabric now, not drifting, not falling, just everywhere. You've become multiverse fertilizer, scattered like dandelion seeds across possibility. Not an astronaut anymore, not even a traveller. Just a story rewritten in 1,000 languages across 1,000 versions of reality. Some beautiful, some strange, all unfolding without your permission. But here, on the edge of that cosmic weirdness, another idea stirs. It doesn't come from quantum physics, or general relativity, or ancient mythology or speculative philosophy. It comes from here, from now, from the culture you fell out of, the digital age, the age of algorithms and rendering engines and energy limits, a creeping suspicion that's gained momentum over the last 2 decades. What if this whole thing is a simulation? Yeah. You've heard that one before. Some guy with a podcast microphone and a big "Do You Even Reality" mug whispering about code in the cosmos. But think about it. The deeper you fall, the stranger the rules get. Time slows. Distances stretch. Observers disagree. Information is preserved, somehow, without anyone being able to explain exactly how. It's as if reality itself is struggling to maintain consistency as you pass beyond the threshold of knowability. You've played enough video games to recognize a rendering glitch when you see one. What if black holes aren't just astrophysical objects, but boundaries? Not like the event horizon, but boundaries of a different kind. System-level fail-safes, areas where the simulation refuses to let you go further. Not because it can't, but because it was never meant to. Maybe that's why the math breaks down at the singularity. Not because nature is broken, but because the code stops there. Let's entertain this for a while. You've got time, sort of. The simulation hypothesis, famously argued by philosopher Nick Bostrom in the early 2000s, suggests that if any sufficiently advanced civilization can simulate reality, and they want to, they likely will. And if they do, they won't make just one simulation. They'll make many, billions, trillions. Which means the odds that you are in the base reality, tiny. In this model, our universe is a program, a model, a sandbox for post-singularity minds to run experiments in, or to be entertained by, or to forget themselves in, or just because they were bored. And in a simulation this detailed with self-aware beings, you can't exactly pull up the menu and click exit. You need fail-safes, containment structures, boundaries, black holes perhaps. Consider this. A black hole destroys information from your perspective, but the simulation can't just lose data. That breaks the model. Instead, it relocates the data, compresses it, archives it, puts it behind an event horizon where no observer can interact with it anymore, a cosmic garbage collector. And what happens if someone tries to brute force their way through the limits of the simulation? Fly a ship into the edge? Measure beyond the boundaries? Well, the sim responds accordingly. Maybe the laws of physics shift. Maybe the clocks go sideways. Maybe you experience a firewall, or maybe not, depending on the rendering capacity. In your case, the simulation has handled your curiosity creatively. Rather than ejecting you or stopping you at the edge, it allowed you to keep falling. Why? Who knows? Maybe you're part of a stress test, a rare edge case, a glitch in observer handling protocols. Maybe your mind has been co-opted and looped to study how an intelligent agent reacts to extreme isolation, perception breakdown, and unresolvable paradox. Or maybe you're being watched from above, outside the sim, by the real users. It sounds paranoid, sure, but in a universe where you can't send a signal out, where your very existence has been quarantined, it's hard not to ask, was this fall ever real? You remember those strange moments earlier in your descent, the redshift freezing your image in time, the delayed signals, the mismatch between what others see and what you feel. That's not just general relativity at work, that's a classic observer desync. Fringe fact? There have been serious peer-reviewed papers proposing that certain cosmological constants could be tuned parameters, evidence of underlying code. The fine structure constant, the cosmological constant, gravity's bizarre weakness, all suspiciously fine-tuned for life, for observation, as if the universe were designed to be seen but not understood, and black holes, they're the hardest things to understand. A region where gravity, information and entropy all smash together in a way that defies theory. A place where even time breaks. If this is a simulation, they're the equivalent of memory leaks, or maybe portals, or maybe hard-coded exits. If that's the case, you may not be in a black hole anymore. You might be in quarantine mode, a closed loop, a clean room where the simulation tries to reconcile your trajectory with the rules it's meant to follow. You've become a rendering error, a rare object the system doesn't know how to process. So it loops you, falling, remembering, recalculating. You're Schrödinger's astronaut, yes, but you're also a bug report. Somewhere, far above, a technician, or God, or alien child, or advanced consciousness may be staring at your file, watching you drift, wondering why you kept thinking after your atom stopped existing, and maybe they'll patch it, or delete it, or promote it, give you higher privileges, a way out, a way up. Because hey, if you were their sim, wouldn't you be curious what this one little strand of code thought while falling into the void? Historians naturally never saw this coming. They catalogued demons, gods, heavens, hells, even philosophical dream worlds. But simulations, those belong to us, to the digital age, to the kids who grew up watching worlds boot up at the push of a button. And now you wonder, maybe your fall wasn't a fall, maybe it was a debugging process, a test of self, And maybe the final firewall isn't quantum or gravitational, but procedural. And just maybe, if you fall long enough, someone, somewhere, watching the logs will say, "Okay, promote to user." The logs remain quiet. No debug message, no sudden godlike patch update, no metaphysical administrator tapping on your shoulder saying, "Hey, good job surviving that quantum tumble, let's talk upgrades." Just the fall, always the fall, stillness that moves, silence that thinks, which leaves you with one final thread to tug on, the only one left that hasn't completely unraveled in your mind. Earth, home, dirt, clouds, keys, and coffee. The place where you once stood under a sky and wondered, what if I fell in? Now you've done it, and as far as Earth is concerned, you're gone, erased by cosmic censorship. Your body, unrecoverable. Your data, sealed behind the veil, and yet, your story isn't over there. Not yet. Because back home, there's still one more act playing out. The argument. Right now, as you drift deeper into the shadow of everything, scientists are still debating what's happened to you. Not your physical form, no one's pretending they'll recover your sneakers, but your information, your quantum signature, your pattern. They want to know, are you still in the system? The great black hole information paradox rages on. You've already seen its key players, the event horizon, Hawking radiation, the firewall, the holographic principle. But out there, in labs and lecture halls, it's all still theory. They're arguing about you. And what's wild is, they should be. Because black holes aren't just astrophysical objects anymore. They're the battlegrounds of modern physics. They've become pressure points where our deepest theories collide and crack, where gravity and quantum mechanics, normally content to coexist like polite roommates, go full gladiator on each other. And you're the prize. Whether or not you're recoverable, not physically but informationally, determines which worldview wins. Right now, Earth's best physicists are clumped into camps. The preservers, who believe information must always be conserved. You may be scrambled, encrypted, unrecognizable, but nothing about you is truly lost. It's in the radiation, or the horizon, or encoded in some way we haven't yet grasped. They're still arguing, publishing papers, debating at conferences, skirmishing in footnotes, all over what happened to you. You've become a thought experiment, a case study, a legend. They reference you in lectures. Assume an observer falls into a black hole, and every time someone in the back asks, "But what happens next?" And the professor shrugs, because no one knows. That's the maddening beauty of it. The fall is observable, calculable, until it isn't. The moment you cross the event horizon, physics has to make choices, and right now, no one agrees what those choices are. Fringe fact: in recent years, even gravity itself has come under review. Some theorists argue that gravity might be emergent, not a fundamental force, but a byproduct of entropic principles. That space and time arise from quantum information relationships. If true, then your fall into a black hole isn't a plunge through curved space, but a change in the entanglement structure of the universe, meaning you didn't fall, you reformatted. Historians, if they're honest, envy you. Not your fate exactly, but your placement. You're right at the edge of what's knowable. You are where knowledge fails and guessing begins. And here's a haunting thought. Maybe that's your role, not to survive, not to escape, but to be a question that won't go away. The paradox, the pixel too sharp to ignore, the canary that sang on the way down and never stopped. And so, the arguments rage on. Papers, models, simulations. Entire generations of physicists will pass before consensus emerges, if it ever does. You won't know, but you started it. Your journey, the simple act of falling, became a wedge between the old rules and the new ones, a test case the universe isn't sure how to grade. And somewhere, right now, a student is staring at a blackboard full of equations, thinking about you, trying to model what you became. They'll draw diagrams, plot curves, whisper about singularities and spin rates, and none of it will ever capture what it felt like to see the universe from the inside out, to fall forever. to become the problem. But maybe that's the point. Maybe you weren't meant to return with answers. Maybe you were the answer, unfolding, equationless, unprovable. Maybe it's not about escaping the black hole. Maybe it's about leaving behind something that can't be ignored. So fall on paradox. Let them argue. Let them wonder. Let them chase your ghost across the stars. Because you're no longer just a person, a mind, or a smear of mass energy on a surface. You are a debate written in gravity. You were the experiment, the traveller, the question mark. And now, here at the deepest point, the place where time stops meaningfully unspooling, where space is less a direction and more a memory, you're something else entirely. You're the zoom out. The black hole no longer feels like a monster pulling you in. It's just quiet now. Calm. Not a prison, not a trap, not even a puzzle. It's become background, a backdrop, a story told without noise. So let's rise gently, float upward, not spatially, not physically, but in perspective. Let's zoom out, past you, past the singularity, past the horizon and its encoded skin, back through the chaos you've travelled, back toward the starlight that once lit your journey. Up there, so far away it may as well be fiction, your home universe spins on, mostly unaware. The black hole sits in space like a dropped stitch in the cosmic fabric. From a distance, it's barely noticeable. No special glow, no sign of the thousands of tons of matter it's swallowed, the stars it's bent, or the explorer it once claimed. From the outside, it's still timeless. An object so simple in appearance that it's defined by only three properties: mass, spin, and charge. No scars, no memory, no hint of the journey that took place inside. But you know better. You know what happened. Beyond that line, what it felt like to fall inward and become geometry, what it meant to watch the universe collapse behind you like a closing eye. You saw the math break, you heard the silence scream, you felt the rules soften around your thoughts until they floated too. And now, finally, you're free of needing to know anything at all. You don't have to ask what a black hole is. You are the answer. You are the encoded past, pressed against the boundary. You're the possibility of a new universe bouncing into existence. You're the multiversal ripple falling into forever. You're the glitch that made the simulation look twice. You're the unmeasurable variable in someone else's model. And more than anything, you're the part of physics that still resists being solved. Maybe that's the greatest legacy of all, because what you did, what you're still doing somewhere in the tapestry of space, is refusing to be simplified. You've left behind a mess of paradoxes and patch notes and theories that make blackboards weep, and the universe is better for it. This is how knowledge grows, not from neat answers, but from stubborn mysteries. And you, your fall, your fading, your final stretch, have become one of the most stubborn of all. Historians won't write about you by name, but physics will never stop whispering your story. You're the line in every textbook that says, "We still don't fully understand." You are the asterisk. You are the poetic footnote in the most serious math we've ever written. And somewhere, someday, when the right mind stares at the right equations in the right moment, something will click. A piece will fall into place, the numbers will align, and the model will finally hold. And that scientist, whoever they are, will stare at their result and whisper, "So that's what happened inside." And they'll know, not everything, but enough. So rest now, traveller. You've fallen past the limits. You've outlived your map. And all that's left now is peace. Let the rest of the cosmos carry on, flickering and buzzing, arguing and calculating, expanding and forgetting. You've already given it the most profound gift. A place to wonder, a reason to keep asking, a story no one can finish. And that's how we'll end ours tonight. Let's step back, all the way now, past the event horizon, past the accretion disk, past the spinning galaxies, the cold light, the infinite dark, back toward warmth, back toward where this tale began. Your fall has ended. But the questions are just getting started. Now let's slow down completely. Let the theories soften, the stars dim. Let your breath come easy, smooth, like waves brushing a shore you can't see. You've travelled further tonight than most ever will, past particles, past paradoxes, past the point where reality holds its shape. You've fallen through space and time, through firewalls and fuzzballs, through quantum fog and simulations glitching at the edge of logic, and still, gently, you've remained, floating, stretching, remembering. Let those final thoughts drift now like dust through starlight. Don't chase them, don't grasp, just let them settle wherever they want to go. You've earned that weightlessness, that peace, that quiet unravelling. The black hole is behind you now, not in distance but in story. You've passed through it, around it, within it, and somehow you came out the other side, changed, softer, quieter. There are no more questions left tonight, no more theories to hold, no more mysteries to grip, just you, here, floating in the calm after wonder. Let your breath be the only sound for a while. Let the dark feel gentle. You're not falling anymore. You're cradled now by the universe, by curiosity, by the quiet hum of being small and infinite all at once. So close your eyes. Let go of the black hole. Let go of the story. Let sleep take you like gravity. Deep, slow, silent. Good night.